Welcome
I
to
don't think
Credit
it's
Union
recording.
Joe is Disrupted with Josh.
Is it
Today
recording?
we're joined by Josh Banta, Vice President with DBE, Data Business Equipment. Josh, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Joe.
Awesome.
Glad
Let's
to be
learn
here.
3 things we should know about you. Lightning round. Favorite food?
You know what? I'm kind of a novice pit master. I started smoking meats about 2 years ago, so I'd have to go with brisket.
Ooh, nice. Favorite movie?
Oh, I'm a child of 80s and 90s, so I probably got to go to Tommy Boy. I'm a big Chris Farley fan, but I'll also say if I'm watching TV on the weekends and any Bourne movie is on, probably not going to change the channel. I'm stuck there for a couple hours.
Love it. And if you weren't helping make the credit union difference, what would you be doing for a living?
That's kind of funny too. I think Josh Cook and I have talked about this. Like nobody sets out to do what they're really doing these days, and I can't tell you that my 16-year-old self thought vice president of a banking equipment company was a good idea. So if this thing runs out, I'm probably going in the restaurant business, maybe craft beer and barbecue or something.
Love it. Well,
Hey, I got this question for you. Wait, 2 questions. I do have a question for you, even though I know this doesn't pertain to anything related to the credit union world. So you're talking about smoking meats. So if you have burnt ends, what happens to the rest of the meat?
You
I
just
always
slice the
wondered
rest
that.
of the brisket.
Huh?
Yeah, you just slice the rest of the brisket.
Yeah, but the burnt ends
That's
is the best
basically
part,
the tip
right?
of the brisket. It is, absolutely. If you're going to a restaurant, that's what I'm ordering is the
Do you
burnt
just
ends.
feed it to do you feed it to the dog or something, the remainder?
God, no, they're too expensive for that.
All
Yeah.
right, all right. Here's the other question, just because this has been in my head lately, like would you rather kind of thing. So I won't even get into where it came up and what group, but so would you rather be able to have the ability to walk onto any plane and pilot it, any plane,
Ooh.
or step onto any boat? Now think of any boat and be able to captain it.
I think I'm an air travel guy. I think I'd go with the plane.
That's where
But
my head
I know
goes.
you're a boat guy, so.
No, my head goes to the plane generally, and I always would have said that, but then I started thinking, wait a minute, I can get anywhere in the world for the most part on the boat too, right? And if I
Yeah.
can captain any boat, I'm talking like some big ass boat, right? I could take it through the Caribbean to other parts of the world,
yeah.
and on the
just be
journey,
gone.
yeah, on the journey, I have this amazing
Very
boat.
true.
See what I'm saying? Like I'm still
Very
in the
true.
air on this
Yeah.
plane that's not going to be as cool as the boat. See?
It just seems the speed of the big boats wouldn't interest me. It'd just take too long.
But because it's like a floating resort, perhaps you don't care how fast you're going.
True.
Yeah, well,
And
I
you
don't
probably
know.
have it to yourself.
I'm just saying you might be wrong on that answer. You should think about it more. Joe, do you have an actual question, or
I'll
are
give
we
it
just
some
gonna
thought.
do this? We doing this all morning, or do you have an actual?
yeah,
question?
no, I mean, we could just do this. But what I'd like to know is if Josh could help us set the stage. We're to talk about ITMs today. You
Yeah.
can set the stage and help explain exactly what is an ITM.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So essentially, ITM stands for Interactive Teller Machine. That's just another acronym that our industry loves to throw around because we love acronyms so much. But we've taken the best of the ATM, which everybody's very familiar with, and added a video component to it. So if you would like a teller to drive that transaction, if you need additional assistance, you can touch the screen and have the teller participate in that transaction rather than just doing that in a self-service environment.
Do people like that? Do you think they do? I mean, the average customer or member of a credit union like to go up and see somebody on the screen?
I think if it's in a familiar environment where you expect a person, I believe they do. I think the deployment of that is very strategic in nature, and how you position that to your membership matters. If it's hey, we're trying to cut back and we just want you to do this for us because it's better for us, that probably is not going to be a winner. But we do see the adoption rates once someone has tried it once and sees that familiar face and got good quality service in a fast and efficient environment, it does tend to stick.
What do you
How
see
are
as
ITM? Oh,
Sorry, go ahead. No, Joe, let's hear a crappy question.
okay, I'll do my best. Well, no, so on that, talk a little bit about the member experience. Like, so how are ITMs changing brick and mortar for credit unions?
Yeah, I mean, ITMs were designed to manage the routine, right? So anytime we can take a routine transaction and move it to a more efficient channel, that's a win. A lot of what we see in the branch, in the brick and mortar experience is really enabling those staff members that are still there to be able to handle the exceptions, right? It's exception banking. So anytime we can move the more routine to a more efficient channel, that frees up the staff that's in that location to be more available to the membership, whether it's a Q&A, whether it's I'm looking at a new product, I've got a life-changing event, whatever that is, you've now made those people more available to the membership to handle that in person.
I haven't heard exception banking very often. That's a great term. I got a question for you. How do credit unions screw up ITMs? How do you see them screw up ITMs?
It's not a top-down strategy. It's it's the latest iPhone. We're going to give this a shot. It really is too expensive to play around with. It's not a toy. So I think that's where we see missteps. Is there's not a full-blown reasoning and strategy around why we're doing it, and then driving that all the way through to the result.
So listen to somebody from yesterday. We were at a Carolinas Credit Union League event, and somebody from Chick-fil-A spoke, and the comment was on the 80-20 principle, right? The Pareto principle. But they use 80-20 as the idea that 80% of most businesses do the same thing as some other business. We do the same functions, have the same function. You got to focus on the 20%. So my question on ITMs is, if by and large credit unions are credit unions, right? If we're just talking about credit unions, they all have the same product, service, everything else, and then you put an ITM in. How do you still differentiate yourself and use an ITM? Or is an ITM not able? Can you not differentiate if you have an ITM and now you're just the same as everybody else?
Well, I think, using that same 80-20, we're still very much under 20% adoption in the credit union industry when it comes to ITMs. I think credit unions they're probably outpacing other financial institutions when it comes to moving towards that technology, because I think credit unions seem to be more willing to take a chance, take that risk. But from a differentiation, the ITM itself is not a differentiator, in my opinion. It's what you do with it. It's the extension of hours. It's the availability. It's the location. It's those type of things that you take the technology and make that be part of your strategy or enable your overall strategy, rather than saying this technology is going to solve all my problems. The technology is just an enabler to solving your business problems and creating that value when it comes to your membership.
Is it possible?
Okay. Well, come on.
Sorry, real quick, devil's advocate. Are there credit unions that swiftly move to ITMs because they just can't hire good people to articulate their brand in the teller line?
I've heard that directly from CEOs. Yes, is we are having trouble staffing branches, so we need to do this as a straight staffing play. Absolutely.
So DBE doesn't want to get rid of tellers altogether?
It's funny. We hear that a lot. Is why do you want to get rid of tellers? And we've been DBE as a company has been marketing ITMs to community FIs for probably going on 8 years now. And back in 2014, I penned an article called ITMs: a teller's salvation in a digital world. Like, we all know the teller job is going away, right? Like, it's another manual process that will be automated at some point in time. And so I personally feel like ITMs is adding technology to the teller's role and allowing them to serve multiple branches, allowing them to handle advanced transactions, allowing them to just answer questions in a much more efficient environment that makes the teller role last longer than it probably would have without technology enablement. So are tellers repurposed as part of an ITM strategy in most cases? Yeah. I mean,
yeah, you're just saying that. You're just saying that to make people feel good. Nobody wants to hear about staff reduction, except for the CFO.
Except for the CFO, right? Yeah. No.
Yeah. Nobody wants. But the crazy part, what if you have? Okay. All right. Let's be real. So, what about putting ITM? If your offices or your branches already feel about the sterile level of a funeral home, and you put ITMs in,
right?
Are you just going with the same funeral home reference? Are you just delaying the death of the branch anyway?
You're going to expect about 10 to 15% adoption in that lobby location if you don't change that experience in some fashion. Yeah, we've seen that time and time again, and I would tell you that my sales team sometimes calls me the head of the order prevention department, because I will tell people that, like, guys, if you don't change what you're doing here and you're purely trying to put a machine where the teller line was, it's not a winning strategy. It's not going to work. You've got to reinvent that branch into some other function and let the technology do what it does, which is automate the routine.
So what would that other function? What's a good best practice example of what do you surround an ITM with?
We like to see like a digital zone in the branch. So whether that's pushing your mobile and online experience, pushing the transactions to ITMs because they can be self-service at some point. Enabling those conversational areas. I always prefer to see a branch, like, I'm going to trip over the stuff that does the routine transactions as soon as I come in the door. And as I move further into the branch, I'm further engaged, right? By the time I get to the back of it, I'm doing a very complex transaction that requires an expert. So that's what we like to see, or that's what we advocate for. Anything outside the branch is just going to be a routine transaction. I drive up to your drive up. I'm there to cash a check or get some money. Like I'm not there to talk about a mortgage loan. I'm going to go inside for that.
Yeah. Are you finding that ITMs are enhancing other channels, or like how does that interact with the broader credit union strategy?
Yeah, that's a good question too. I think I think we're often posed with that question from the standpoint of it's an either or, and it's just simply not. There's a dirty word in banking called omni-channel that gets thrown around way too much and means different things to many different people. But I don't think you can be really good at one channel and expect to win. So consumers are picky. Like they want to do what they want to do today because that's how they feel today. And so it's up to the credit union to decide where they spend their dollars and what that investment is as to what the mix of those channels is. But I do think there's a play down the road of moving towards more connected experiences and bringing some of those channels together. And truly omni-channel to me means I can start and finish in any channel. That transaction is transparent across the FI to where it doesn't matter where I start it. I can finish it in the branch. I can start it online. I can finish in the branch. I can start in the branch. I can finish online. Those type of things. So
why are credit unions buying more ITMs?
Right now, it's a bit of an emotional play. We've got some folks that have been stung. Branches didn't run that well when they were closed. So we're seeing some emotional buying around that and kind of filling out the business continuity plan, if you will. But we're also just see a continuation of technology. I think it's just how do we continue to transform the branch to be the advice center that it needs to be in the future. So I think that's most of the strategy that we see today.
That's what you see why they're buying. Why? That's funny. Gosh, it takes down a different rabbit hole that when the branches were closed, they weren't running very well. Who saw that coming? Do you feel like that? I'm not even going to ask. I just feel like that's because you have unfairly, there's several credit unions or a few credit unions I think out there that don't take accountability as seriously as they should, across all channels. But so why aren't other ones buying them?
It's hard for me to say that. I mean, I think cost is a prohibitive factor. I mean, it can be. There's not always the best ROI, and you don't always do it because of an ROI either. Again, if it's a strategy enabler, you're willing to spend on that. You don't necessarily have to see 100% return. Some people just aren't forward thinking. I mean, if we look at the customer base, the credit union base, I mean, some are just going to continue to do traditional banking because they think that's what their membership still wants, and they might their most important thing on their annual meeting agenda is what are we having for dinner? I mean,
do you think that's what their membership really wants? Do you think it is? You know what I mean? I've heard that before.
No, it's because they don't think they have choices, right?
Well,
they don't think they have choices.
What their membership wants, you go back and be like, no, our members want a hitching post and they want free buggy whips with every account, right? Now they want, yeah. Okay, come on, give me a break.
And there's, don't you think there's a little bit of just the financial industry in general is risk adverse. So why do I want to risk taking 80% of my transactions and moving them to a new channel that I'm not sure everybody's going to love? Now, I think making that decision in 2020 versus 2013 is a completely different ballgame.
But
there's plenty of data out there now. But
I know, but you know what I hate about the decision being made in 2020, like purely being made. I get the idea of an acceleration perhaps, but just purely being made that, now we've decided this technology is viable in 2020. Man, I think that's such a BS time to think about it, right? Because what I guess my question is do enough financial institutions, so I'll open up to banks, I guess, as well, know who they are and why they exist versus what they are? You know what I mean? Like, of course you're a credit union, of course you're a bank, but who are you and why are you? If you don't have that defined, you should never buy an ITM. You should never buy another piece.
You should never buy any technology.
Anything.
Yeah, anything.
Technology.
Right. Yeah. And I totally agree. And I just don't know that is part of the conversation in a lot of the FIs that we play in. And I have to be a little bit political here because I still need to work with all those other folks. But having that brand essence and understanding who you are drives the strategy for an ITM play, right? I mean, you're not going to get there without one. And so where we see people struggle is the lack of the strategy on the front end. And we try to drive that, but we can't create that for them, right?
No, and I think you're right. I mean, I will give you a ton of kudos that to be the order killer, if you will, or at times, because I mean, I think you're right. I mean, the last thing you want to do, though, I mean, truly somebody that does care is want to give a solution or sell a solution that
Nah,
is fit in kind of a strategy. But you know what? I'll say it. I think that there's a lot of especially credit unions out there that think they exist for service. They have no idea what service really means, and they don't realize that service has evolved to the point that it's only table stakes and experience is what matters. Service is BS, and you don't care about it, it's bad. You go to McDonald's, I swear to God, and I guarantee you, all three of us on here, if you deny this, you're a liar. How many times have you gone to McDonald's or pick your favorite fast food or whatever? You go there, you put in your order, right? You go to the drive up, especially if there's a few of you in there or kids are with you, and then you get it out the window. How many times they screw up your order? Does it happen? Has it ever happened?
Oh yeah.
It happens, right? And then here's what's even better. How many times you think, hey, check the bag quick, check the bag, make sure it's not screwed up. Because you expect them to screw it up. And you're getting bad service and you still go back.
And you still go back. Yeah.
So service is BS as a word. So I just don't think enough institutions, it's not just fair to credit unions, a lot of businesses have truly given enough thought to who are they, why do they exist? Because if you don't do that, I don't know how it'd be so hard to build strategy.
Yeah. Well, I think that even applies to our company. I mean, we can all say we differentiate on service, right? I mean, so what? I agree with you. So what? You got to have something more than that. Got to be something more than that.
All right, I'm going to pull us back a little bit high level. So I know ITMs are still, in the early stages, but what comes next? What's after the ITM?
Yeah, I'd like to think we're getting closer to that hockey stick bell curve. It's definitely been a slow adoption. We've been at it for about 8 years. We just hit our 40th customer that's purchased ITM. So, and we don't deal in a tremendously large trade area. I mean, we're in Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri. So not a huge base when you look at the overall country and the metropolitan and the population centers. But I think what we're going to see, and this has definitely been accelerated this year, just based on R&D at the manufacturer level. We're going to see more connected experiences. I'll keep using that term, I guess. So ways to pre-stage transactions, additional connections to credit union assets, meaning the core integrations that are coming. And then I think the big win here is getting the membership comfortable with the technology so that they begin to service themselves. I mean, that's really what this is about. And I've called ITMs a bridge technology for a very long time. Is we've got to familiarize folks with the technology first before we expect them to use it on a regular basis. And so, the example of everybody's so high on mobile deposit, and why would I ever buy an ITM when I can just have somebody deposit a check on their phone? I said, well, when's the last time you had a member come to the teller line and you had them pull their phone out and showed them how to deposit that check, right? Like, we don't do those things to bring them along with us. And so I think we're going to see the self-service strategy continue to be a player in the mix of channels. And I think as we start drawing those things together and connecting those experiences, that it'll become even more important and popular. By adding additional transactions, allowing it to be in self-service 24 hours a day, that's kind of the win. I don't think the technology itself is going to change all that much.
So I mean, yeah, maybe an unfair question. If everybody gets it all lined up, they have all the ITMs, the digital experience, everything connected, it's working seamlessly, it's easy, simple for the member. Now here's the $1 million question. Big banks already can do this. So now the question is how are they going to differentiate themselves? Didn't they just make themselves not any different?
That's a tough question to answer. You're right. I think ITMs have always allowed smaller FIs to compete with the big banks. I mean, if you truly want to invest in that technology and spread your locations, be more accessible, go extended hours, you never could do that with brick and mortar to compete with the large money centers, right? That was never going to happen. With technology, you possibly could. But once everybody gets to that point of it is just an ATM, right? Nobody's going to build a branch without an ATM today. I would hope that there's a day in the future where nobody builds a branch without an ITM. But once it gets to that point, then you come back to your earlier comments, Josh. Why are we in this? What's the experience? How do I drive a unique experience at that channel? So I don't have the answer for that, but I think that's what it's going to come back to.
I'm not sure why anybody would build a branch today with a teller line.
I tend to agree. I tend to agree. Yeah. But again, traditional channels.
Joe probably would.
I want an only teller line branch. Those are
all teller only. I'm only doing teller transactions.
Only teller line. I will go on record. I am pro teller.
There you go.
All right, well, Josh, we'll let you off the hot seat here. Folks only took a handful of things away. It sounds like ITMs are an enabling technology. We're to enhance the member experience, create a connected experience for people. And this is one way to enhance all of the channels to bring more transparency to the member experience and enhance
Absolutely.
all of that. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that sounds great.
I appreciate it. Well, hey, thanks again for being a guest. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. This has been Credit Union Joe is Disrupted with Josh.